All right, we are live. This is the Tesla Beat podcast. We are officially at 40. Crazy to think. I mean, I guess 52 would mark maybe 1 year. I know we've skipped had some weeks we missed and stuff, but it's crazy to think you can run a whole podcast on one company. I know people obviously who cover it daily and running great shows, but there is never a dull moment. And I think Joe may be back in a minute. But we have two special guests, a regular attendee, and a special shout out because it's Hans's birthday. What's up?
Hey,
How's it
hey.
going, Hans? Happy birthday.
Going
Thanks for
good.
joining us today.
Thank you.
And of course, Joe came back. Sometimes can't get rid of him. He's always back. But we also have a very special guest. And actually, this is the funny thing is it's a local Bay Arean, if you call it that, if that's a thing. And we've never had the privilege to actually meet in person, maybe passing by at, events. But, we're going to bring on the very special Emmet Peppers. Welcome, Emmet.
Hey, guys. Nice to be on the show. Hey.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining. So, but yeah, let's get into it, into our typical quick look at the stock. I pulled this up this morning. This was brutal. Given it was a 26% year to date. It's down to about 183. So obviously this has been happening over the past couple weeks. It actually kind of rebounded this past week. So I know for a lot of potentially short-term investors, this has just been a pretty hard hit. But for those that are long-term minded, this is potentially another buying opportunity. I know I picked up some, I believe at 188, so a little bit down from that. But just wanted to kind of flash this up. Any quick thoughts on this? We don't have to spend too long. This is just, I know we have Hans and Emmet, you guys are both joining, but I don't know if any thoughts on the stock price this past week. Maybe not. All right.
Well, I would just say just a lot of it's hard to, I think there's still digestion going on from the earnings report and Elon's comp package fallout. So it's, any given day, it's hard to tell exactly. But I think when we zoom out over these months, this month, in a year's time, it'll make more sense probably. But I guess we'll see what happens in the next few days.
John, you're muted.
Oh, of course I am. So you got into it a little bit, but the big fallout this week. I mean, it was crazy because Elon starts tweeting, "Hey, I want 25% control of Tesla" a couple weeks back, and so we're all talking about that. And he's like, "But this is all pending, the Delaware court case." And so this judge in Delaware actually ruled on some of the stuff from Twitter, which is crazy. No conflict there. It seems like maybe there's just one judge in Delaware. But either way, I don't know. Or, one judge that gets all the Elon cases. So all that to say is that they ruled that that the comp plan from 2018 for Elon Musk, they voided it. So there's a huge fallout from that. Just based on, even videos that I've seen from 2018, all say and talk about how this package was, this package is ridiculous. At least that's the perception in 2018, is that this is not why would anyone sign up for this? There's no guarantees. It's all based on how the company moves to these insane market caps, because what were they at in 2018? Less than 50 billion, something like that. And so, but yeah, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you both, even Joe, we've all had 4 or 5 days to kind of mull over this. So what's been, what's your thoughts today? How has that changed potentially over time? But not everyone has to jump at this once.
I'll go first.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I would just say
everybody jumped at once.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
I thought I'd just jump in quick. So I would just say it's ridiculous. Makes me highly suspicious of Delaware and the Biden influence in Delaware, and this Shakespeare quoting judge is kind of I don't know. It's just It's very strange to me, and I think Tesla should definitely reincorporate to Texas, and we might have to wait for that to happen before they draw up a new comp plan, is my understanding. So I think there's a path to reconciling this kind of very screwed up situation, but it's going to take several months until it's sort of set in stone, the path.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yep.
all of that. The Farzad had a really great show with a guy named Richard Hoffman, who's a lawyer, that really went into the details. If people want to really understand what it was that happened, that was a great show. But so I wanted to just point out that there's a difference between voided and what actually happened. So voided is not what the judge did. He rescinded the package, which basically means that we're hypothetically trying to go back in time and say, okay, we're going to pretend this never happened, and now we have to redo everything all over again. And so in order for Tesla to comply with their actions, they would have to make it much more clear to all of the shareholders exactly what the relationship of Elon is to all the board members if they're going to propose a new plan. So there's possibilities for Tesla to do that. Tesla obviously can also appeal. I think this is a terrible move by the judge. I think that, we've already seen Tesla saying, hey, we're going to get out of Delaware, we're going to move. And from what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of companies and other people who just had it in their mind because it was standard practice that we're going to incorporate in Delaware, that overnight has dramatically shifted. And it's no longer going to be the default for especially tech companies and people in Silicon Valley. We know that everyone in Silicon Valley really looks at Elon as a business leader. What he did in just cutting deeply at Twitter was something that then had ripple effects throughout the rest of the industry. And I think this is going to be the same thing for Delaware. I think that they're going to lose a ton of corporate business in the state of Delaware. And I think they have a relatively low corporate tax rate for the state, but they have a large share of corporations that are incorporated there. And so I think they have very large corporate tax earnings that they bring in for such a small state. And I think that's basically, we just went through an inflection point that's going to be on the downward trend instead of the upward trend. And a lot of these other up and coming jurisdictions like Texas or Florida, other areas are going to end up getting a lot larger share because the one thing that investors and boards and companies hate is uncertainty. And the one thing that this ruling did was 10x'd the amount of uncertainty that executives, officers, and board members have on corporate, large corporate boards or large corporate companies that are publicly traded. And so, just because they don't want to expose themselves to that added risk now, people are going to be fleeing Delaware.
Joe, did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's something I didn't actually think about. And knowing that, man, wow, that's something else. My view is more of a broader view. I just looking at what the board was trying to do, you realize that they do want to pay Elon Musk, and that was my whole take. I didn't really care about anything else. I figured okay, well, they're going to find a way because they want to do this. So that was my broader take on all of it. Yeah, the stock price is one thing, but knowing that the board of directors is actually trying to compensate him was my big takeaway. But man, I feel sorry for Delaware corporate tax. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think my thought is more of, really, it's going to be, one thing that could get into an interesting discussion is obviously Elon knows a lot more of what's going on because he's, talking with his lawyers. But what is Elon's thinking? Again, this obviously, I think this is going to be, they're going to try to appeal this or, correct this because it's a huge fallout. But this is at least, I think, what other CEO has ever had a comp plan that is completely based off of the market cap of a company, or more importantly, with no guarantees and, for stock or even, an annual salary. And then even take, the past 2 years, the guy hasn't also been paid as well. So now you're removing something that was set up in 2018 and, making a judgment now as if we were still in 2018 is just pretty ridiculous. especially, I think again, you guys keep me honest here. Part of the reason for the I guess the correct term isn't void, rescinded the comp plan was because the shareholders didn't know if Elon controlled the board or not, or something like that, right? But at the end of the day, that's the guy that I want controlling the board. That's the guy that I want, the visionary of this company, probably the greatest mind of our lifetime, if not the greatest engineering mind or entrepreneur that ever lived. He's the guy that everyone is investing, into Tesla, SpaceX, and X and XAI and Boring, all these companies. I mean, this, people are following this guy. The talent is coming to Tesla. This place is harder to get into than Harvard and Yale to get a job at Tesla and SpaceX. They're coming there because Elon's there. And my opinion is that, and I think, again, you keep me honest, feel free to fact check me. I thought I saw some tweet out there where, the judge had made a comment on how much time he was spending at Tesla. And I think, that was really like kind of a low blow, because at the end of the day, you want Elon focused on the most important projects. I don't want him focused on expense report. I don't want him focused on supply chain. I want him focused on autopilot and full self-driving and potentially some manufacturing, because you don't have, that's like what he's great at. Obviously he's great at a lot of other things, but you don't want to him focused on operations. And so my opinion is that, Hans, you brought up a ton of great points on, the fallout potentially of a lot of these tech companies or companies that incorporate there. But really, it's in some ways, it's the feeling is that like the government is controlling capitalism or overstepping in a lot of ways. And I just think that this is a lot of unneeded distractions for Elon. What this guy needs to be focused on is, obviously continue all of his companies, and obviously he's going to continue to be vocal about, his beliefs, but focusing on something that happened literally 6-7 years ago. And then now he's got to go back. This is just like, in my opinion, this is just a huge setback for that, because who knows how long this appeal process is, or how long it'll take to potentially get the comp plan on the shareholder voting. And then even then, at that point, you still have to figure out what you're going to do for his future comp plan. So I just thought it was like, I was more probably frustrated that this is just going to be a distraction, something that's not needed, because he's already accomplished so much. Like, we need to be focused on, getting to a sustainable future, getting Starship up and running. And obviously you could say that about a lot of things, but I'm just saying it's just, this was just more of an annoyance than anything else. But what are your guys' thoughts on what I said, or also too on how Elon's taking this? Is this and how this may even impact Tesla in general?
One of the things that I think is important to note is just that, the reason that this comp package is something that is so supported by most shareholders, and why a lot of, at least the long-term shareholders, are very upset with the ruling, is that the incentives were aligned so well. I think that Elon roughly doubled his percentage ownership in the company in return for doing a 19x on the stock. And so if I'm, as the shareholder, can incentivize someone to essentially 20x my investment over the course of 5 years, I'm more than happy to pay that person, to reward them with double their current ownership of the same stock. And for the court to basically take it upon themselves to find that this is an unfair way to do compensation, it is unprecedented. And so I understand why it was challenged, just because we don't have anything that says, yes, this is a good thing to do, because people don't normally do this, because let's be honest, most CEOs don't have the confidence that they can pull off something that crazy. And so, I enjoy, and going back to the point that you were making earlier, the fact that he is willing to put himself on the line and forego any compensation if he cannot perform. Like, I like that as a shareholder, and I think that he is the best person for the job, and I want him to actually control the board. Like, one of the reasons that I am so invested in the company is because Elon is calling the shots. Anyone who is a tech investor that appreciates the power and the synergy that is possible of a founder-led company versus a company with some professional CEO. And one of the big problems with those professional CEOs is A, they don't really have the vision, but really B, their compensation is not nearly as aligned. They get paid to keep an existing company from going down. They're like, insurance for board members and investors against downside risk more often than they are capable of providing huge returns. If you look at the history of public companies, founder-led companies do much better during their tenure than they do under the tenure of professional CEOs. And, that's something that there are very few exceptions to. And so as a shareholder, I like that Elon has that amount of influence and control over the company. And I was fully aware that he was very tight with all the board and able to get a compensation package that, when I looked at it, said, you know what? If he gets that, that means that I have won massively. I'm okay with that. I was well informed. I don't need the judge to go back and tell me that I didn't understand the company that I was investing in. And yeah, I think that it's just ridiculous to 5 years later try and make that decision.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Not only that, but who wants to run a company with their enemies? You know what I mean? Like realistically, like, no, I want my boys with me. You know what I mean? Like, I want people I can trust, people who we have a shared vision of aligned goals, and people like that. I don't know, but here we are. So yeah, the whole thing is wild, man. Like, this dude has done more for like Tesla, and his effect, where people like to admit it or not, his effect on all of corporate culture and just popular culture in general has an impact. Like, yeah, they might not like him, but they mention him every day. They talk about X every day. They talk about him every day. They talk about Tesla. You know what I mean? Like, but yet this company is nothing, and he's nothing, but he's on everybody's lips and in everybody's minds, occupying all their thoughts. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys all hit the nail on the head. It's a real wake-up call to what we thought were free market capitalism society we live in is not really that. It's kind of a wake-up call that there's a lot of political influence, and Elon has stepped on a lot of toes of the current administration, who's sort of out to get him in any way they can. And so I think it's coming back to bite him now, and that reality sucks, and these next November can't come fast enough, because these next 9 months are gonna, there's gonna be probably more pitfalls given to Elon and Tesla when there's opportunities to give them more pitfalls by, the current political, administration and powers that be in the U.S. I think so. It's sort of a rude wake-up call for a lot of us who, I think thought that we lived in a more free country than we really do, probably.
What would be, just because this has kind of been, the hottest topic, like, what do you think is going to happen going forward? Specifically, just to keep, since we're talking about Elon and Tesla, like, what do you think potentially is going to happen? Do you think this is going to fuel more frustration on Elon's end, obviously, or is there anything else that you guys are thinking that they're working through, or thoughts of what you think that the company should do moving forward?
I think that, one of the things I would echo that it does seem very unfair what has happened and ridiculous. But I would say one of the cool things in all of it is that we can actually see our system actually working and working correctly. Like, you can't have a judicial system that is perfect and always makes perfect judgments. And so in the United States, we do have the luxury of having these 50 different states that they can all try regulating different areas in different ways, whether that's on social issues or whether that's on business issues. So the fact that we have the opportunity for Elon to just pick up and move out of Delaware, go to a place like Texas, and try there. Like, that is a great check and balance on our system for people who, sure, if you want to have an activist judge who's gonna like muddy the waters of free market capitalism, you can do that. But we also have a free market of states, and we can take our toys and go home, and we don't have to deal with you. And so that's a really positive thing in our system that I enjoy, I appreciate. I think it's working correctly. And I think that is the mechanism that is going to solve this, because there are going to be states that want and appreciate that business and understand how to actually structure their legal system in order to attract that are going to benefit from this decision. I mean, because one of the things that you realize very quickly when you read the judge's decision is that she is not a business person, that she has she's very offended that Elon Musk is so dang rich, even though he was not anywhere near the richest person in the world in 2018 when this plan was awarded. And so she's just basically punishing him in retrospect for the results of his incredible innovation. And so with all that said, I think what it sets up is for Elon to be able to go to whatever jurisdiction that is going to serve the interests of Tesla, the company as a whole, the best. It's looking like that's probably going to be Texas, and it makes a lot of sense just because their corporate headquarters is here. And as a result, they will be able to work through all of these issues. Like, there's, a number of questions about exactly, does the pay package get appealed? Do they win the appeal? Does that set precedent? Does that not set precedent? Like, how's all that going to work? Okay. And then depending on how that works, now we have to set up the new package. And so the new package may or may not include all of the stuff from 2018. All of those are details that will get worked out. But because they have the ability to go find a more favorable area to do business in, they absolutely will be able to solve all of the uncertainty and all of the unpleasantness and get Elon to that 25% ownership state that he needs to be in ultimately. And it's just a matter of going through kind of a slow and arduous process and waiting to see what different results appear in different jurisdictions, because they can't, even if they move to Texas, they can't, transfer the jurisdiction of this one case about the 2018 pay package to Texas. That stays in Delaware. So it just is a matter of when they are in Texas, how do they deal with the fallout of whatever happens with that 2018 pay package case?
Man, Hans with the dropping the gems. One thing that really bothers me about Texas, that has always bothered me about Texas is a direct to consumer. Like, I really wish they had sewed that up before even going to Texas, but Texas seems to have everything that they want and need and wants to work with them. They just really got to nail it on that one other aspect. But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, man. This is a great check and balances for the system. And man, I know that, yeah, everything you said was great. I feel bad for that lady, man. She's just like wrong day, wrong person.
Yeah,
Elon affects so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, imagine how many. She must have a number of friends and family members that are giving her their opinions of how wrong she is in doing this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of her people she surrounds herself are probably like-minded, but there's probably a number of people that are, voicing their opinions to her personally. You'd imagine too. So she's probably going to have an earful. But I think that it's smart just to reincorporate, or just to move to Texas from Delaware before they do the new comp plan, because even if they try to redo the comp plan, and cross whatever T's or I's that she said they need to do, who knows if she'll find something else, or some new plaintiff will come forward, and then that same judge, or some other more activist judge that the Bidens have influence on potentially. Who knows if that's how true that is or not, and could just muddy things up even more. So I think getting to Texas as soon as possible is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Hans. You made that comment. So I'll loop back to what Emmet just said. But we all, like, the shareholders all benefited out of this package. Like, the package was set up in a way where it's like, if it hits certain market caps, that's when these tranches will roll out. And if you look at even in 2019, I'm thinking back to how much I think the post split amount is. I think when the Cybertruck launched, it was like $23 in like 2019 of November or something like that. And in I think it was 2020, 2021 when it 10x'd, right? And now we're still almost 20x again, not completely. Or sorry, 10x. I'm throwing out crazy numbers, but it had this insane run, and it's one of those things where no one has worked harder. And even during those days of of 2018, those were the production hell days where this company was potentially going to die. I remember I got my Model 3 July 5th of 2018, and that was during the weeks where they were literally trying to get closer each and every week to 5,000, and the guy was just sleeping on the floor. And so now you're going to throw pretty much all of that out. And so in my opinion, again, I ultimately, I know that Tesla runs the most hardcore legal team by far. So yeah, they probably already even have the documents out. Like if the plan is to move to Texas, it's already probably out, right? Or it's in the works, and they're going to make sure that potentially this doesn't happen again, that there's no more of these distractions. But at the end of the day, it's like, how is Elon going to look at the past 6-7 years? And not that he did it because of money, right? Because we all know
that's right.
We all know that that's not.
We know it, but
Yeah.
the judge doesn't know that. And the public doesn't know that. Yeah. John, tell them why. Why? Explain. Anyone listening who's not
exactly.
sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I know why is because, the amount of work that this guy has put in, the amount of hate that he has received in 2018, 2019, for those that were around, like, I mean, I had neighbors, like, and I did an interview on this where someone 2 exits up literally was trying to show autopilot 1 go into a wall. And so I went and recreated it. That was the epitome of it, to the point where they have stalkers going on Fremont factory, to potentially hurt employees. Yeah. But the short sellers could taste blood. They wanted to taste it so bad. And they were so close because every week it was just like, some random thing. Oh, they put up a tent. They, the fire happened, but Elon went and endured through all of that. And ultimately, he took all of his riches that he had gotten from PayPal and put them into the 2 hardest industries to break into. No one wakes up in the morning thinking, let me go build a car. Let me go build a rocket. Like, to have the capital to do all of that. And
at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to May Musk. When we interviewed her at the Tesla takeover, she told Elon, "Oh, pick one," and then he of course picked both. So he didn't even listen to his mom. But at the end of the day, like, Elon, he didn't do this for himself to go for all the clout in the world. Sure, a lot of that stuff came after, but it's one of those things. His friends were even sitting down with him and showing him rockets exploding or talking to him about why you shouldn't start an auto company. Like, those were all things. So he had gotten all the red flags, and yet he still went through it. And then he went through it to the point where he said, again, this was a year or 2 back. He said that, Tesla has caused 50% of all of his lifetime pain. And so that's why, like, I think for me that there's a lot more frustration that you're going to potentially see from some of this stuff, because Elon has fought hard to make this company what it is. Sure, it had these crazy run-ups, but that's what the market played out. Not necessarily, he didn't expect in 2018 that 2 years later, 3 years later, that this company was going to be worth more than some of these other big social platform companies or FANG companies. Or all automotive combined, and they're worth more than that. So it's just, I think it's just a real disservice for hard work in this country, because of the way the comp plan was set up. And again, more importantly, like, everyone's going to look at it now. It's like, oh, he's complaining over $50 billion. Like, he's got 200 more. That's the thought process because no one knows.
People just see the headline like, oh, what's this richest person in the world complaining about 50 billion less? That's nothing. He's already got 100 billion or 200 billion, but he's not buying yachts or islands like all the other multi-billionaires out there. They're buying islands. They're doing things for their personal consumption and whatever. Elon's, he's working 100+ hours a week, still trying to better chances for civilization and humanity to survive. That's his goal, is not to like better himself and get richer. You know, he's trying to just do what he thinks is the best he can do with these resources. Forget, if you put these resources in some like trust or something that he controls, he'd probably be fine with that if it's not in his name. He just wants to control the direction of where the resources are going, and ultimately wants to build backup civilization on Mars in case something eventually will happen to Earth. And that's a great goal to have, and Tesla is a means to get there. And he saw it as a major cash cow potentially to help fund that entire backup civilization he's going to set up, you know, self-sustaining city on Mars eventually. So, you know, that's his ultimate goal. And I don't think people understand that. No one understands that. I talk to like certain family members that don't study Tesla, and it's like, it's just their eyes gloss over when I try to start talking about that stuff. They think I'm like some crazy conspiracy theorist or something. You know? So it's like hard to communicate that. I think people who've read science fiction or whatnot have probably understand this, but a lot of people, 90% of the population, can't comprehend it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just want to put a super fine point on that exact sentiment, Emmett, that, you know, there's a difference between people who can get things done and people who can't get things done. And one of the things that the media does is they paint people who can get things done as the bad guys and say, you know, what we need is more people in government to have more control over things so that those bad people can't do those bad things. But those people in government can't get anything done. Look at our border. It's a disaster. Like, this is what happens when you give incompetent people who don't know how to get things done responsibility for important things. And so one of the reasons why I want Elon to have the largest net worth possible is because I know, based on his track record of watching him over literally decades, like, you know, everyone who made it big in the like .com bubble radically changed their lives. And the vast majority of all those entrepreneurs decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to kick up my feet. I'm going to take it easy from here on out. I'm going to be an angel investor, or I'm going to be a board member, or whatever. Like, I am not going to pour out hours and hours and hours and years and years and years of blood, sweat, and tears on the next most hard thing that I can possibly accomplish at this point in time. And that's what we see from Elon, is he goes all in every single time. He doesn't, like, every single hand is double down. Every single hand. Not ever has he taken his foot off the gas and not doubled down with everything he has. And so we know that this $55 billion that they're trying to take away from him, that is $55 billion less of the most efficient and most effective capital that could possibly be put to use on the world's and humanity's biggest problems. I don't want that money to be in the hands of someone else who's not going to use it nearly as effectively to solve problems that are going to have massive impact on hundreds of years worth of people, and however many thousands or billions or however, whatever that number of people looks like over the course of the next century to 2 centuries.
Dude, what you just said, sorry to call you, it literally just gave me chills, because, you know, you're talking about the most utilized or efficient capital that you could put somewhere. Like, Elon's your guy. There's nobody else that you would give your money to. I mean, just look at look at NASA putting together Artemis, how much they spent, what, like $90+ billion on one rocket.
Ridiculous.
Like, sure, everything needs to be perfect. That's their mission. Like, they will not launch unless they're 100% guaranteed that this is going to be successful. But look at how much money you have to throw at it, and look how far behind you'll get, right? And, you know, you look at SpaceX, they had like 10 launches in a matter of like a really short period of time. Like, this company is setting up satellites. It's helping people get internet that never would have had it in the most remote areas. Now I know I can go to Joshua Tree or some of these other really remote locations, and, you know, T-Mobile is going to be able to hook up to Starlink, and there's not going to be a place on Earth that is not going to be able to be linked up. I mean, that's what just gave me chills from what you said. It's like, that is money that you're going to want to go and put somewhere else. I mean, look at what he did with X. In a matter of like 8 months, he literally took a sinking ship and made it something that is amazing today, you know, and it's going to be great even in the future based on the small hardcore team that he's built. But when he laser focuses on something, you're going to get amazing results. I mean, he always talks a little bit about his batting average, right? He's got an amazing batting average. He's maybe delayed on when he actually gets the hit, but he always delivers on the big hit.
Yeah, once you start to think about, like you say, his batting average and stuff like that, you really start to realize, like, listen to the man. Like, every time he's been doubted, he's proven to be right. And all of these companies are evidence of that. Like, everything was impossible. Nothing that could have ever been done. Like, I remember a scientist talking about landing a rocket as akin to throwing a pencil off of a building and having it land on the eraser edge every time. And it was like, you can't do that. You can't land rockets on Earth on a, you know what I mean? It was just like impossible, but they ended up doing it, and everything was impossible. Tesla was impossible. You know what I mean? Like, all these things are like super impossible, but yet he doesn't. And you cannot put that money, like what you guys were saying, in the hands of the government. I mean, look at the deficit. They're not good with money. You know what I mean? Like, they are just not financially responsible people. They have a credit card that they are just running up. So yeah, you do not want them in charge of any of that money. So yeah, it's just, the whole thing is baffling, but it all comes down to Elon and the fact that he's been more right than he's been wrong. And I think you're looking at an instance where they realized that they didn't believe him in 2018 when the comp plan came up. And in the fallout from that was he became who he is today. And I think now they're realizing that, hell, if he could do that, then maybe this next comp plan will probably he'll even more than double that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they're realizing, like, nothing's really impossible when it comes to Elon, and they just don't want to cash him out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the new comp plan milestones. You know, it feels like, to me, it's like when I see those milestones, I'll be like, oh, it's done, just a matter of time. You know, so I'm excited to see, you know, what those milestones will be.
I want to see 1 billion robots. I get paid when there's 1 billion robots.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, there's got to be one where, you know, some crazy comp that he'll receive when it becomes the world's largest company, potentially bigger than Aramco and Apple combined. If, again, I don't know what that would look like. And also, too, you know, one thing, you know, not to be like a downer here, but, like, you know, he's only got, you know, he's what, 53, 54. How much more time is he going to want to, you know, be really focused on Tesla versus potentially other things? I don't think his time has clearly finished up at Tesla anytime soon. But I just hope that they can get this together, figure out what they need to do with this 2018 thing, get that figured out as soon as possible. If they can overturn that or appeal it, or, you know, put it on the shareholder meeting again for 2025 even at this point. But Hans, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that I think that, you know, the Optimus Robot Project and FSD combined are a huge piece of what he needs to accomplish next in order to make a civilization on Mars possible. That a civilization on Mars becomes self-sustaining much quicker if you have access to a labor force of AI-powered robots. And so that's a piece that he has to get figured out. And we absolutely will figure out how to give him that 25% control that he needs so that he can continue. Like, remember, actions speak louder than words. Everything that we see from the company shows me that Elon is pedal to the metal, moving forward as quickly as possible on both FSD, their AI plans, and Optimus Robot. And so he is like, he's not saying that I don't think that we're going to be able to solve the 25% problem, because he's still moving forward aggressively with AI and with robotics inside of Tesla. So we'll get that solved. And yeah, whatever that looks like is whatever it looks like. You know, this is a very innovative company. If we can create the products that we have created over the past, if Elon can land rockets, then he can figure out how to solve this pay issue with the help of a board who is absolutely supportive of him, shareholders who are absolutely supportive of him, and all of that will be a done deal. So I think that we'll see Tesla continuing to be a major part of his focus moving forward for at least the next 7 years. It'll be into the 2030s before those two projects are in a place where I don't think that they will require large amounts of focus from Elon. And accomplishing those two things will be incredibly productive and valuable to any shareholders of Tesla, the company, over that period of time.
Yeah, and I was gonna make one last comment. I think you said something that sparked it was like, or even from our comments, like people are gonna bring a board together that is gonna be very supportive of what they have on mission, or they're gonna be bringing people onto their board where they can get, sure value from them, or there's gonna be some wins from partnerships, or companies that that can help, they can partner with, or knowledge expertise that they're bringing in to help. You're not going to bring a board in where someone's just going to be constantly raising their hand and challenging, and not only challenging but just being disruptive and causing a lot of friction. You're going to bring a board on that is going to be very supportive of what the CEO is doing and where they're headed. The last thing you're going to want to do is bring someone that is just going to bring a headache. But of course, you want people that you're close with, that are going to challenge you, at your best and at your worst. But also lift you up and push you to that. And I think that has been what this board has been. If you just look at who's been on it, who's been on the rotation, they've had some amazing leaders come on board and rotate in and out. And now, even having JB come back, one of the OG guys, OG founders coming back and helping out, it's just it's important. So that's the thing there, is that when you say that the 2018 comp plan, when people say the 2018 comp plan was, should be rescinded because it was Elon owned the board, and yet, like, of course you're going to want that. Like, why would I not want that? Especially when you think of what Elon has done. So, but any final thoughts? Otherwise, we can transition to some other stuff. I know we exacerbated this a little bit, but it's just been on my mind pretty much all week, just because of all the fallout. And it still continues to be part of the discussion, and we probably for weeks, if not months, will know what the turnaround on this is, because as we all know, it takes a long time to turn some of the things around. Emmet, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just say on the optimistic side, at least I think it helps show Elon how much all the investor base is on his side on this stuff. It helps reignite that, and let him know, like, hey, you got a whole bunch of shareholders on your side. They're going to be behind your back and help pass whatever comp package comes next. So not to worry, like, just a little delay here. So I hope he kind of realizes that from the reactions everyone's had.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt, and I'm pretty sure he does. Like, people tend to think that Elon's surrounded by yes men, but clearly that's not the case. Like, but he's surrounded by people who want to see innovation move forward, and yeah, you can't be bogged down with a whole bunch of people who will stop innovation. And I mean, as we can see, like Hans was saying, like, the company's still steamrolling, man. Like, nothing's stopping. Like, it's still balls to the wall. But yeah, what's the next topic?
This one's a little bit redundant, but it's always great to look back. Sawyer did put out a final tweet, kind of, I think Toyota finally released their numbers. So this is like the official claim to fame was able to happen. Model Y is the best-selling car in the world. First one for the first electric vehicle ever to take this crown. So it's a big deal. And again, this includes gas and electric vehicles. So that was a big deal. And then I think this came out about, I believe, a day or two ago. It sounds like there potentially is a new battery plant coming to Nevada. I don't know how deep we want to go on this, but did anyone want to give some commentary on this?
Well, the mega packs are going to be next level. Tesla Energy's, I know somebody's going to go, but yeah, Tesla Energy is going to be like next level. And to think that that's not going to happen is, I mean, like, you're just, I don't know, you're hoping for something that's like inevitable. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion at this point, but yeah.
Did anyone else want to give thoughts on the new factory or
I
new
was just
plant?
waiting or looking to see if Jordan had commented. I had asked him some questions about it this morning, but it's really interesting to see Tesla because they're purchasing some CATL equipment to manufacture LFP batteries there in Nevada, and that's a great sign. You know, there's a lot of speculation about how Tesla's going to move forward with LFP, and it's a big topic that is very important because the LFP chemistry is one that allows for a lot more ramping of battery production, whether that's for stationary storage, whether that's for vehicles. We don't have a great supply chain in place in the United States for LFP currently. All the groundbreaking IP that goes into LFP batteries was really developed in China, and a lot of those patents have recently expired, and so there's a lot more capability now for us to begin that work here in the United States. And then obviously with the IRA, there's a lot of incentives around trying to domestically source our own supply chain on that. And so that's something that we need to just see Tesla do. I think it's interesting that it seems like they're experimenting. If they're getting this equipment from CATL, it almost means, with 100% certainty that that equipment is for prismatic cells, not cylindrical cells. And so it's a different form factor than Tesla has used. And so I think it's cool to see them actually really diversifying the different types of equipment that they are using. They also got a good deal on. I think this is equipment that was being decommissioned. And so what it looks like to me, and this is complete speculation on my part, is that basically Tesla is using this as a secondary test bed to develop whatever their plans are going to be moving forward in LFP. And we don't know if that's going to end up benefiting the 4680 form factor or whether they're going to do something else. But it does show that Tesla is going to have in-house LFP battery production. And I think up to this point, there has been lots of speculation, like it's the obvious area that they have to go into. But I think this is the first concrete move that we've seen that Tesla is going to develop LFP batteries in-house as well. And that's great news just because that chemistry is a lot cheaper to produce than the high nickel chemistries. And so while the 4680s are great batteries, as long as they're only high nickel batteries, then they're always going to be more expensive batteries than LFP. And so whether we see LFP in 4680 or whether Tesla does it is prismatic cells the way that CATL has been doing it, whatever they do, we do know that they're going to be having in-house LFP production, which is going to be great for cost of goods sold, but also great because it is scalable and allows them to just take maximum advantage of all of the IRA tax incentives that are going to be there, because they'll be able to produce a lot more LFP cells over the next 10 years than they would if they were just sticking to nickel for their in-house production.
No, that's some really helpful insights. Sorry, Emmet, were you going to go?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I'm really excited to see what the Tesla China Megapack factory is going to do, because I mean Tesla China to me is the hero of Tesla in a lot of ways. If you're talking about manufacturing, I mean, yeah, lots of kudos to Fremont and Giga Austin, but I mean, the Shanghai factory is the bulk of the profit margins for Tesla. And I can't wait to see the Megapack factory, how fast it ramps up and how much of a mammoth that could potentially be to Tesla energy globally. Just like the sudden, like I think that's the potential, surprise that is not really, no one seems to be expecting, is that's supposed to be end of this year. Maybe they're gonna do pilot production there, but Tesla China seems to beat deadlines a lot. They're just on their game. They're just like the work ethic that the world has never seen before is in China right now, and Tesla China is really capitalizing on that.
Yeah. Sorry, Hans, were you going to say something? Oh, okay. Speaking of China, Sawyer, shout out to Sawyer for releasing some of these numbers. They actually insured almost 13,000 Teslas last week, and it was the best week in the fourth quarter in Tesla China history. So shout out to those. Keep saying there's no demand in China, but echoing Emmet, what you're saying is just being like, China being the hero out of all of the factories, and more importantly, probably one of the most important markets in the world, if not the most important market in the world to break into. But any thoughts on some of these numbers that were shared?
Something to think about before somebody else has a comment is that we are now in a space where an inflection point that I think you're not going to see ICE vehicles trump the numbers anymore. Like, I think you're at an inflection point where this will be that was the last year that an ICE vehicle top sales of this and top sales of that. And I mean, all the speed records and everything like that is starting to all be EVs. And I think like a lot of these things are all going to become EV. So I just think that's something that's really kind of hard to wrap your head around, is that, like, you know what I mean? Like ICE vehicles are like the end is nigh. And it's kind of hard I know it's hard for a lot of these companies. I mean, hell, Toyota just announced, or was it Honda? I think announced they're making a new internal combustion engine that's like, that was going to like be able to like have way better. So I don't know, crazy that they're still even working on that, but yeah.
Any other thoughts on the China news as well? Nope. All right. So one thing that actually happened last night, and I don't think any of us would be really surprised. Model Y price cuts last night in Canada. We also, again, shout out to Sawyer for breaking this. So it sounds like they cut the prices by about 7%. And for certain people, you could qualify up to a $12,000 or CAD rebate in Quebec. It's up from 5,000. So I think it was even Omar. I think one of his friends potentially got a car recently too, and he said that he pretty much bought a Model Y with full self-driving for $40,000. Obviously, the full self-driving was the subscription, so it didn't include it fully. But these cars are becoming cheaper and cheaper. I mean, if you look at the used market, that's even you can really actually get into a Model 3 for fairly cheap. But just seeing that Tesla would drop the prices and continue to just move through that volume is they're always, again, looking at how the markets are doing in specific regions and then making changes accordingly. Any thoughts, Emmet or Hans, on some of this? Like, were you guys expecting price changes? Are you expecting more? What are your thoughts on the current prices?
I'd be curious to hear from Emmet before I go.
Yeah, I mean, I am disappointed in price cuts anytime I see them, to be honest. Yeah, it's nice to get it below to a certain price that there's an extra credit that the consumers can claim now for that case in Quebec, I guess. And it's just a very regional price cut. So maybe that was the design of that one. But in reality, the demand for these cars should be much higher than they are now, such as no price cuts should be needed anymore, ever again, really, for many years. So it just, to me, it's a public awareness issue of the competitive advantages that Teslas in particular, EVs, but Teslas in particular have, especially to other EVs. And that I think there's just a big gap in public awareness. I mean, most of the United States, where I live, like, you talk to a person on the street, that's, if you're not in California, that is, if you talk to people in the rest of the country, people, they don't know you can charge at home every night and be full every morning. And they have all these questions that you're just like, how are these people, how do I feel like a broken record answering questions when I talk to people? I'm like, man, these are the silliest questions people always have. And I'm like, how is it possible still people don't understand these things? And the safety aspect, the most American made, there's just such a huge vacuum of public awareness that I got to think that, when I don't want to be, I got to think at some point Tesla will turn on kind of an educational campaign of some sort that will get to those people that are completely clueless about EVs and Teslas in particular still.
Yeah, I would not disagree with anything that Emmet said, and I do think we're at a point where we should not need to see any further price reductions. The one thing that I would add, though, is just to reiterate the importance of interest rates. And I really think, based on what we're seeing in Truflation data right now, that the Fed is going to have to cut interest rates. And I think that's going to be very beneficial. It means that the monthly payment, like that Teslas will get cheaper over the next year, regardless of whether or not Tesla cuts their prices, because those interest rates will make those loans a lot more affordable. And so I think that that's going to be a knock-on effect for demand and sales. And so I think that's something that we can look forward to. And I think most of the commentary that I've heard from Wall Street analysts doesn't really bake that in. People think that we're going to continue to see aggressive price cuts and that margins are going to languish. And so they don't appreciate Tesla's amazing ability to reduce their cost of goods sold. And I think they don't appreciate the impact that reduced interest rates are going to have on demand for Teslas. Because, right or wrong, most people really make their buying decisions purely based on their monthly loan payment. And one of the disadvantages that EVs have compared to ICE vehicles is that while they are lower total cost of ownership, no one's making purchase decisions, or almost no one, unfortunately, is financially intelligent enough to make purchase decisions on total cost of ownership. They make their purchase decisions purely based on the price of that initial loan. And because EVs are more expensive up front, but then cheaper to operate, they are at a disadvantage. And so interest rates especially have a large impact on EV sales because of that fact. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to, surprise to the upside for the majority of investors this year.
All really, really good points. So thank you for the commentary on that. And something that actually broke this morning, so I'm glad I added this into the podcast, is Giga Berlin hits a new Model Y record of 6,000 Model Ys per week. I again, 5 or 6 years ago, or 6-7 years ago, Tesla was literally like Elon sleeping on the ground to get to 5,000 Model 3s. So, this is a huge feat. So huge congratulations to the Tesla Giga Berlin team. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? Like what type of, just any thoughts?
I would say that this update, like, they were at a really good pace of growth a while back, and this, getting from 5,000 to 6,000 has been a little bit slower, which does seem like the growth rate is slowing down a little bit at Berlin. I hope that they solve that quickly. I am excited, obviously, for us to get to higher numbers, but Berlin has been slower to ramp than we had hoped, especially when we benchmark it against Shanghai. As Emmet pointed out earlier, just Shanghai is a beast at pumping out vehicles, and we would love to see for Berlin to get to similar levels of productivity. That would be great for the company overall. And it's not going to be too long before we do see that local production of whatever the European compact next generation vehicle looks like. That we expect that there's going to be regional variations, that the one for China is going to be a little bit different than the one for Europe. I would expect that one for Europe is going to be manufactured there in Berlin. And so we do want to see them, continue to make faster progress towards ramping up production capacity, so that we can have more confidence in what the future is going to look like when they get to that next generation platform.
Emmet, any thoughts? Otherwise, we can close out with Cybertruck China.
Yeah. No, I think Hans covered it pretty well. It's just great to see Giga Berlin flourishing and growing still. So yeah, that's awesome. Awesome news.
Well, actually, it's not that I forgot. I was reminded that you also got your Cybertruck recently. So before we get into your thoughts on the Cybertruck, Cybertruck China Tour. I mean, if you've seen some of these videos, the line is insane. It's like trying to get into like a theme park, if not bigger. I think there was even the guy Raphael who's doing like who did the Roadster. He's like traveling around in Roadster from Europe, even flew to China to see it. I mean, the publicity that I'm seeing from this. I mean, this is the most viral product, if not best product that Tesla has ever made. I mean, that was genius. And shout out to, I believe it was Ray's tweet that Elon saw. He was like, oh yeah, let's take it to China. And then within like a week, it's like already got like a whole tour set up. I mean, that's the Tesla way, right? But it's through X or through those posts that, you know, things happen. And so any thoughts quickly on the China tour? And then also to Emmet, I would love to, let's just close out on your thoughts of being an owner for a week or 2 weeks.
I'll just quickly say that, you know, this is that marketing campaign for Tesla that Emmet wants. It's just not here in the United States. It's sorry.
Yeah. No, I think the Tesla, you know, the Cybertruck in China is incredible. I hope that they figure out a way to produce it there, and maybe they don't call it the Cybertruck like some people were saying, and they can get around some like Chinese law by calling it something else. I forget. That would be incredible to see. There's like so many people in China that are huge Cybertruck fans. They're probably all trying to figure out ways to let it happen. Before I would like to say, before I get into my Cybertruck thoughts, it looks like Elon Musk even liked the tweet you guys put out for this this live stream. So that's great. But kudos to Elon, because in the past, if he liked a tweet, I remember there'd be tons of bots liking it instantly too, and you'd have like 1 million likes. But I looked at it and I'm like, wait, if Elon liked it, how come it only has 57 likes still? In the past, if Elon liked something, it would have like 1 million likes within like minutes. And so that just shows, that's great testament to all the bots that Elon and the X team have gotten rid of, and the quality of using X has gotten so much better in recent months, I would say. Anyway, but back to the Cybertruck. Living with the Cybertruck, I'm really bummed because since Monday morning I dropped it off to get it wrapped and windows tinted, and it looks like I'm not going to be able to get it back till Monday. I was hoping to get it back today, but it looks like it's not going to be done until Monday. So I've been like in Cybertruck withdrawal for the last 5 days, and every day I'm like, oh, I wish I had my Cybertruck, because like I really miss it. Like that week I had it, it was like next level. It was the future. It's like when you first drive a Tesla, you know, the first time you drive a Tesla for a week or two, and then if you have to drive an internal combustion engine car again after that, you're like, what is this piece of old antiquated machinery I have to drive? I don't even forget this is a steering wheel, what? And that's sort of what it feels like driving my Model X now. I feel like I'm going back in time, and I love the Model X, don't get me wrong, but after driving that Cybertruck for a week, trying to go back to a Model X is even like antiquated. It's so bizarre. Like just the smoothness, the steer by wire, how quiet it is inside of it, the sound system, the visibility. You forget the outside crazy look of it and the attention you get, but just the actual driving experience of sitting in that giant spacious cabin, and the seats are amazing. It's just, the Cybertruck is the best product that Tesla has ever come out with, by far. Even if it didn't look crazy, if it looked like a normal pickup truck, it would still be the best product Tesla has ever come out with. Just the experience of driving it and using it. I think everyone needs to experience it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even, you talk about my Model X or even Model Y. I've driven even the Highland Model 3. I drove that recently. It's the Cybertruck itself, driving it is completely different, just because the steer by wire or the 4-wheel steering.
Yeah.
Even the steering wheel itself, because it's not quite the yoke. They have the little thing on the top, but everything about it is different. But yeah, I think that's the question too, Emmet. Not just to hammer on what you said, but like, I'm wondering, I don't even know if I want to get it wrapped anytime soon, just because I don't want to give it away for a week.
Yeah,
but
that was the worst part. I have to give it away for a whole week now. I felt like I needed to do it because of the stainless steel. Like, I really wanted to keep that look, and I was just going to get the windows tinted, which would take like a day or two. But then I was like, well, here, I'll just get it wrapped. It'll take an extra few days. Now it's a whole week. But I thought about it, and I like the stainless steel look a lot, but there's some maintenance you have to have. You have to scrub the fingerprints if you want the fingerprints off. If there's bird droppings, you're supposed to get that off quick so it doesn't corrode the steel. And I really appreciate the stainless steel look, but I figure I'll see lots of other Cybertrucks with stainless steel. I'll be able to appreciate soon enough. I already saw one on the road in my neighborhood. Actually, it was an RC candidate, actually a release candidate. It had the big RC on it. So I'm seeing more of them. Yeah, I'll see all the stainless steel. It'll look nice all over the road, but mine will be wrapped, so I won't have to.
Can you tell us the color, or is that going to be like a big reveal?
It's sort of like a gender reveal. I'm kind of waiting to. Only my wife knows, and I didn't even tell my kids. And I'm gonna pick them up in this new colored Cybertruck maybe next week and surprise them or something.
When your wife takes the video this time, have her take it in landscape.
All right, I will. Yeah, and just so people know the quality. If you saw that video, the quality was terrible, but she texted it to me. I could have, I didn't want to upload the high quality version because you have a lot of kind of parents that they might not be comfortable with their kids identified on social media or whatever. So I think the low quality is why I had to keep it that way. I felt.
I just wanted to make two
go ahead.
points real quickly on this. That one of them is the demand halo. Going back to pricing, that the Cybertruck, the amount of attention. The more of these that are on the road, as Emmet said, like no one knows about this thing, and then the more people see it, like we feel like it's the biggest thing in the world because we're in the bubble, but we are in a bubble. And the more of these things get out on the road, the more people are going to go, what the heck is that? And it's going to be that entree into the Tesla world that they've never had before. And that is going to create additional demand. It is going to kind of be its own built-in marketing campaign. So that's really good. But then the second thing is, it is such a phenomenal product that like it really stands on its own. So it's awesome to see Tesla continuing to just innovate, make changes. It's great validation of all the things that we've learned from people like Sandy Munro on the innovation that goes into what's underneath the skin. That what's underneath the skin of the Cybertruck is actually almost more innovative than how crazy it looks, and that's awesome. And it's especially awesome because almost all of that technology is going into the next gen vehicle. And so people are going to be able to have a Cybertruck like experience in a car that eventually, it's not going to start out at $25,000, but eventually the price of that next generation vehicle, they'll be able to get a compact car that feels like a Cybertruck, except just low to the ground and small. And it'll be something that they can purchase for, well under $30,000 out the door. And that is going to be just an incredible leg of growth in volumes.
Yeah, as we all probably beat a dead horse over, Tesla's in between these two big growth phases. But either way, I mean, with that said, two products that I'm excited about this year are the Cybertruck and the Tesla Semi. Hopefully they can get that locked down, because those two products, well, even the Semi, that out of 100% of emissions, 80% comes from trucking. So that industry needs to be turned over, and that will happen hopefully with the Tesla Semi getting up and running. But either way, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Tesla Beat. Again, this was podcast number 40. Obviously we got to talk of all things Elon, specifically his comp, Cybertruck, the new Giga plant or battery plant in Nevada. But please patronize the people that joined us today, Hans and Emmet. They're both tagged on X if you're watching on X, or on YouTube. Their link to their X account is there. Also, I'll probably go back in and tag some of the channels as well. But either way, thank you all for coming this week. We'll be back next Friday, and we appreciate your time.
Great.